Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here from the Mountain Weather Information Service. This is your planning outlook updated on Friday the 24th of January. Now there's some good news for lovers of winter weather because with a change of air mass, much colder temperatures will be in the picture as we go through into the week ahead. But with that comes severe conditions at times on the mountains as snow and hail showers will rattle in from the west and it will be often windy with gale force winds frequent into next week. We'll start off with temperatures, and this is the 850 millibar level. Now, as pressure begins to fall once again, that becomes more useful to us because it corresponds very nicely to the higher tops in Scotland. As we go through into the weekend, temperatures at about 1,000 metres are around freezing point, so those higher slopes likely to see frozen terrain. It'll stay more or less the same through into the early hours of Sunday, but a notable cold front is then coming in from the west, which will bring a sharp drop of temperatures through Sunday daytime, so that as we get towards the end of the afternoon, it'll be close to freezing from lower slopes up in Scotland and down to about 600 to 800 metres across England and Wales by Sunday evening. And that sets the scene for the days ahead, basically, because into next week, for several days, freezing levels likely to be below 600 metres, maybe briefly higher across Wales, but you could be looking across the Scottish Highlands of freezing levels, again, commonly down to lower slopes. So terrain widely frozen, the mountains essentially snow-covered from low levels up, where the showers do occur. Temperatures on the higher tops then, -5, -6 would be likely in Scotland, around -4, say, on the top of Snowdon, Scafell Pike, for example. So much colder air than what we've been seeing in the past week. Just the change of air mass, this time originating off Greenland as a classic polar maritime west by northwesterly. This taking you on over a few days, and there's not a great deal changing through the week ahead because it stays with that cold air mass. Only subtle changes may be getting in back end of the week. Some cycles of freeze and thaw may then start to develop, but if I just skip on briefly into the early days of February, it still looks as though chilly air is never too far away from Scotland. This chart shows you snow accumulation, and we'll begin with later Sunday as just we start to see the beginnings of cold air, and really as we go onwards into Monday the cold air is extensive. Any precipitation coming in from the west is going to be snow or hail to low levels, and we're going to get some considerable accumulations focused on the western mountains, particularly Scotland, but notice how the lakes and the Pennines start to pick up on something through into Monday night and Tuesday. Some substantial falls then over the West Highlands. There'll be some drifting and strong winds, so snow will be blown around quite considerably. Lower amounts in total toward the eastern side of the Highlands, but with showers coming through, there'll be at least a fresh covering, I would have thought, for most mountains through the early stages of next week. And this then taking you into the middle of the week. You can see how there's slight variation across England and Wales, but on the whole, it's still a snow-covered terrain that will be around in the later stages of the week. So winter more properly returning to the mountains. Let's take you through the synoptic charts. Then here's Saturday. The cold front waiting toward the west and the northwest holds the change then to the colder conditions through the second half of the weekend onwards. Saturday daytime itself, though, a southwesterly wind is in, not a particularly mild one, as we mentioned, those temperatures close to freezing point on the Scottish Munros. A lot of low cloud around, though, so quite a murky day, drizzly conditions across many western hills, some snow grains mixed in there on the higher slopes in Scotland. The rainfall or the snowfall not amounting to a great deal, but just enough to be a nuisance, and persistently damp much of the day. Lowest cloud around western coasts, highest cloud breaks further toward the east you go. On a blustery day, strongest winds across the northern side of Scotland will be gale or even severe gale force around the far northwestern coasts. That cold front gets on the move gradually through into Sunday, a belt of heavy rain turning increasingly to snow on its back edge. That will be passing eastwards through the day, slowest to fully clear across Wales and the Pennines, but will be on the move, I think, at least through into the afternoon. The air mass that follows then is much colder, and showers that come in will be increasingly of snow or hail to lower slopes across the western and northwestern Highlands. Again, it's a windy day. Gales or severe gales for a time ahead of the front will tend to ease just a bit as the front passes, so winds dropping to some degree through Sunday daytime. Now, the charts may not tell the whole exact story for the days ahead into next week because it's going to be all dependent on little troughs and small-scale features that come in from the Atlantic. Basically, it's going to be a showery story day on day. West by southwesterly winds, but with that cold source of the air, it will be extensively below freezing across the mountains, really from about 400 to 500 metres upwards, sub-zero temperatures. And those showers that come in from the west and the southwest will be falling widely as snow and hail, often to the lowest slopes. Most frequent across western hills, particularly west and northwest Scotland, where they may merge to almost constant snow and hail over a good many hours. Risk of rumble of thunder mixed in there as well. Wind speeds will vary in and out of showers, sometimes very squally gusts coming in and severe wind chill then where you're exposed across higher terrain. I won't get too clever with detail because there will be subtle variations just how the forecast unfolds, but basically that cold westerly air mass continues to affect the country through into Tuesday with various clusters of showers, maybe in some places lasting for several hours, so snow accumulations building up on the hills. And again, there'll be heavy, there'll be some hail, there'll be the risk of rumble of thunder, particularly around western coasts. Very similar story overall into Wednesday. Detail is rather elusive. Wind speeds varied but generally strong and probably gale force on the mountains. There may be some stormy periods just as bits of troughs and fronts do sweep their way through. That'll organise the snow and the hail into something more constant too. So it's a very similar story. The absolute detail tricky. Snow, hail and cold conditions through into midweek. So trace the isobars back on this chart and you'll see where that cold air is coming from. It comes round from Greenland and Iceland, and that's what's affecting us through the middle of the week. To knock things on then towards next weekend, and subtle changes look believable in the forecast modelling as pressure builds a little bit between the Azores and Spain and Portugal and falls somewhat over the mid-Atlantic, and that just tips the wind direction a bit more into the west by southwest, and I suspect freezing levels will tend to rise. I should think some cycles of freeze and thaw will start to re-emerge on the mountains, so not as cold as the early and middle part of the week. It could still be that we're sub-zero, at least on some days on the mountains. There may be the odd day where we lift just above. I don't think we go completely as mild as what we have just been. Still looks pretty unsettled as low pressure systems are never too far away, so weather fronts coming in from the Atlantic to bring some rain, some upland snow and the risk of gales, mixed in maybe with the odd build of higher pressure and a window of opportunity somewhere in there, but a generally unsettled story looks to be the theme for next weekend and just beyond. Most indications look pretty unsettled into the first full week of February. Some suggestion maybe of pressure building a little bit with time, but that's a good 10 days or so away. So we'll keep an eye on that and update you in the next video. That'll be online for you on Tuesday. Prepare for winter then to return with full force on the mountains in the days ahead. Stay right up to date with all your local forecasts. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.